Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So here's my review and breakdown of, the final episode here of season 3. And so we have one more season left with where things ended off in this episode. I'm really interested in where they're going to be going for season 3 because there's a couple of things here that I feel like, I have some thoughts, on the arc overall of season 3 here. But let's just talk about this episode here. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, I also do want to say that I'm definitely, frustrated with a couple of things in terms of how they promoted the final episode here, because they kind of just spoiled that Daryl and Justina reunited in this episode, right? Because there's a lot of teaser images that came out and you see Daryl with Justina and I'm like episode 6 ended with Justina getting taken away. So I'm well, I know they're going to reunite in this episode so that definitely is something that is frustrating, I will say, in terms of how I think, this season was promoted, because I feel like a lot of that stuff should have been, kept, a secret going into this episode, because I kind of knew what to expect just based off of that. No, I will say the one thing that shocked me was Codron showing up. He actually shows up right in the beginning. And so, there's a couple of things. First of all, the good with all of this here, it's so awesome to see him here in season 3. Now we can say that Codron has been a part of every season, right? Season 1, 2, 3, and 4. So besides Daryl and Carol, I guess he would be the next big character, right? So, really awesome to see him there. He does find that statue and he does find the Rubik's Cube that was left there from Daryl and that whole thing with Laurent. And so obviously at that point, he kind of felt like this is either a sign, or maybe Laurent was here, or Daryl was here, or something like that. Now, I will say, and I'll talk about this more in depth in a video coming out later on tonight once the episode actually comes out, but I don't understand how Codron got here, because I was looking up, France, London, and Spain on a map, and it looks like when you're in France and you're going to London, it looks like you're kind of going north. And somehow he ended up, not going to London. He ended up going back to France, and then conveniently traveled south, to Spain, and then ended up in the same place as Carol and Daryl. Just a lot of that there, I really... this is an issue in season 2, was that there was just a lot of convenient storylines that were really, really frustrating. Now, I love having Codron here. I think it's really awesome. But it's also one of those things where Codron should have never really left the story to begin with, right? It makes no sense as to why he just ran away. To me, it was probably more of a maybe budget issue, and to not have the character there for season 3, for most of it. I don't really get it. I honestly don't really get it at all. I think Codron should have been here for the entirety of season 3 instead of having a storyline like that that's kind of silly. So now it's just going to be, however they explain it in season 4, which is probably just going to be well, I've just been trying to travel here or there or whatever. I don't know. It's a little silly to me, but it's awesome to see Codron. I'm definitely really happy to see him. He actually shows up at the very end, but we'll talk about that. Fede is interrogating Antonio, and I will say for Fede's storyline overall, I really thought he wasn't going to be a villain, but this episode kind of cemented the fact that he is. And that was kind of shocking. I think that was really, I will say, El Alcazar, I felt was either one, going to be built up as a big villain for season 4, or they were going to end up, dying out here in season 3. And that's exactly what we got here. So Fede, I would say, was the villain all along. And so now looking back at all of season 3, it's really interesting to see how they built up this character as the villain, because he kind of just is the villain. He's telling everybody that he didn't do anything. He loves this place. And we see that Carol actually went back to Solaz Del Mar. And so, I could see that maybe you're sort of tricked into thinking that he's a good person. Honestly, for me, I felt like there was just more there that was a little bit more complex with the character. But I will say, I think that is true. I think all good villains have that other side where you can sort of see the other side to the character, right? But I think by the end of this episode, he just became literally a villain, and you were like, all right, well, first of all, I don't know why they didn't just get rid of him at the end, but obviously he will be there in season 4. Daryl's storyline here is pretty much him and Paz are going to El Alcazar, and they're going to, save Justina, right? And save everyone there. But the plan is Justina and Elena, right? Just save them and then get out of there. And we actually see pretty much all that happen right away. There's a big dinner scene. There's Walker puppets. We actually saw the current king and queen of Spain, so that was really cool. And that whole sequence was really awesome. I think that the choice of music there, the Walker puppets, was a lot of fun to see a lot of that. I think, Justina being taken and like all of that was just absolutely insane to see. I think for a storyline this season, it's kind of an insane storyline for The Walking Dead to do. But I think they obviously wrapped up all of that here in this season, because I do think season 4 is going to be something entirely different. I do wonder if that's why the story ended this season, and maybe, season 4, they just wanted to go in a different direction. I do kind of agree with it, because as much as I really liked season 3, I think this being a storyline into season 4 would have felt a little, I don't want to say boring, but I'm happy it ended when it ended, because now season 4 can focus on something brand new and the characters returning back home to America, right? Like we can actually get another storyline here in season 4. Salaz Del Mar, like I was saying, is just a bad place now. And yeah, throughout a lot of this episode here, there was just a lot of action stuff happening. Carol and Antonio are just obviously trying to get away. And I will say, like, to see them sneaking around as easily as they were able to is something that, like, it's something that I don't know if it's like David Zabel, who's the showrunner of the show, or if it's the writing, or if it's the amount of episodes, or what it is. But there's just a lot of convenient moments that don't make a lot of sense, right? And I'm looking at how Salaz Del Mar is run overall. And like Fede knows at this point that like Carol, or maybe it's not Carol, but Antonio's out there and someone's trying to save him, right? And so why not have everyone everywhere looking for them? Instead, you have people walking around with like these lights or lanterns, right? And it's like, I feel like they should just be like, all right, let's shut this whole place down and all that. But instead, they're just like sneaking around. And so it makes it so easy for Carol and Antonio to just like, walk around this place. I feel like the whole place should literally just like completely shut down, and then they can find them like that easy. But this place is so easy to sneak into and to sneak out of. And I don't think it has anything to do with the community. Obviously, it's the writing there. It's because they have to have these characters in certain moments so conveniently. And that's something that's been happening a lot just with this show specifically. Like if you think back to season 2 with how Carol got to France, like there was just so many things that happened, and it was just way too convenient for the characters to be able to survive, or, you know what I mean? So I think in terms of pacing and all of that, it is something that, yes, season 3 definitely improved a lot, like for sure. Most of the season was really great, but there's little things like that where it's just, the believability of the story is just, it's kind of frustrating. And a lot of moments just feel like they're just happening and there's no meaning behind them. Like, I don't really value this moment happening because it just seems so easy to get into this community, right? And I just feel like the story should have been slowed down a lot more, just built up this place a lot. And so I wasn't a fan of how easy it was for Carol and Antonio to just like go anywhere they wanted to in Salaz Del Mar. Even when Daryl shows up later on, he's just kind of there. Like, it's just like, what? Right? So I will say though, like when they went to El Alcazar, I think Daryl and Paz getting into the place, with wearing those masks, I think made a lot of sense because obviously it's some sort of disguise. Like there's some sort of explanation there. I do feel like if you're going into a place like that, though, they should know who's going to be, going to those places. And it shouldn't just be so like you're wearing a mask or whatever. And it's easy just to, get into El Alcazar. But like, it's, to me, it's like zombies are just everywhere. The world is just different, obviously. So I'm okay with like that explanation there. I also really love the scene where Daryl takes out that one guy and then just unleashes the walkers everywhere and takes out everyone pretty much. And so it is just chaos everywhere. And we eventually learn that Elena actually has a kid, and so that's why she had to go back. Paz seemed very upset, but I think was kind of probably just more emotional. And then she wakes up and then Torres dies. And so I wrote in my notes here, underwhelming, ? Because I really do kind of feel like, this arc here was a little underwhelming. And it really is, I think, and I've talked about this a lot in like pretty much, I don't even know if it's every episode review, but definitely by the time I've gotten to the finales of each season of, the spin-off shows right now, it does feel rushed. It just feels rushed. Like Torres shouldn't have died right there. It just feels underwhelming. I didn't really know too much about the character at all. Was I happy that he was gone? Like, I'm happy in a sense that, like, yes, the storyline is over, so now we can focus on something else. I just think that they just never really spent the time to focus on building up the villains of this season, and I think that's the thing. Yes, there's 7 episodes this season. Season 4 will have 8 episodes. It's not enough. Like, I see other shows that are starting to go up to like 12 episodes and more. I think The Walking Dead needs more episodes. It's really that simple. Because you have moments like this where it's like, yes, we're seeing the explanation for why things are happening, but it doesn't mean anything because there's no build up to it. So, for the character to die right there, I think, obviously it's just, I guess that's just kind of what it was. Fede was probably the villain all along, but the character never had a lot of dialogue really at all. And so was I supposed to really care at all about this villain? Like, if you think about it, I haven't done any videos on who this character is really. Like, I've talked about him, I think, in reviews. Maybe I've done like one video, but like, like usually with The Walking Dead, if there's a villain that is really, interesting or whatever, I'm making a lot of videos talking about like theories on this or that, like with the Whisperers. I'm thinking back to, like, I talked about the Whisperers a lot, like, what could this mean, this and that. And I feel like with this season, there just really wasn't a lot there because there was no build up. There was nothing really interesting building up this overall story. So I will say, the Alcazar storyline was underwhelming. I do think that, maybe AMC saw that and that's why, they chose to end it here, after season 4. Maybe they saw that, there isn't a lot of interest in the spinoffs right now because of, I really think it's the episode count. I honestly think that is really hurting The Walking Dead quite a bit right now because you have to wait a whole year for another season and usually you're watching the same show for like, from October to April or something, right? And so you have the summer off. It would be nice if like there was a breakdown until like the spring and then we get to watch like the next show. But no, our break right now is until Dead City. And that's not even this show. And so we have to wait until next fall, like after the summer of next year, to see how the story is going to end. And so it just kind of, there's not a lot of hype there. And I think that is something that is really hurting this show right now and why, this El Alcazar story just wasn't the most interesting because it just 7 episodes, like that was it. And they kind of ended it here. So I will just say with his death here, it was underwhelming for me personally. And so we see Daryl pretty much save everyone here. Like, that is pretty much the story here, is Daryl goes there and saves everyone. I think it was really cool. Everyone is really happy at the very end. Paz and Elena are going to be going to Barcelona. And I think that's pretty much going to be the end of their story. Honestly, like, the kind of vibe that I got from that ending scene there is that they're going to go to Barcelona and just be there kind of thing. And I think that's kind of a good bye to the characters. They got a happy ending and that's going to be it because, I don't see them going back to Barcelona in season 4 just based off of where things ended here at the very end. I think that was our goodbye to Paz and Elena. I don't think they're going to be really big characters at all in season 4. Like, I don't even think they're going to be characters in season 4. So, it's a happy ending, but kind of underwhelming. And I feel like if they built up the villains here a lot more, when Elena actually kills Torres in that scene, I think that it would have been way more emotional, way more impactful, again, with more episodes. Carol and Antonio are trying to get out, and I actually wrote in my notes here that guy that was going like nuts on all those walkers and taking them all out in that battle episode a couple episodes back, I was like, he's amazing, he's helping them out, this is incredible. And then I wrote, never mind, because I saw what happened, and he basically just gave them to Fede, and so, we get that whole final scene there with Roberto. I think that was actually really well done, I will say. Like, that trap was really cool and really, really creative, because, walkers were everywhere, none of them had weapons. And so what were they going to do, right? And I was already thinking like, well, Daryl's on his way there, so Daryl's going to save them. And I really was hoping that wasn't going to be the case because it was just too predictable. Like, I knew that Daryl was on his way, and so I was like, Daryl's going to take out the walkers or something, and it's exactly what happened. And I think that is just, it was way too predictable. I think that you could have had way better writing in that scene. Now, I will say, before we get to the ending and everything, the whole journey back home with Daryl and Justina, really incredible. And I think just that part right there really showed me that Justina could be a really amazing character for The Walking Dead if she survives the final season here. So first of all, Roberto and Justina did survive the finale. I really thought that they were going to be gone. I thought that they were going to be like just gone this season, but it looks like they'll be there for season 4. And I think that Justina, like if there's a way for her to go back with Daryl and Carol to America, I think that would be really incredible. I honestly kind of feel like at this point, they might just keep her storyline being like, well, you know what? I just want to stay here now. We made this place better, and we're just going to leave this place now. That's kind of where I see season 4 going now. I would really like to see her back, you know, with the Commonwealth and all of that. I think that'd be really awesome. Like, I'm trying to think of like how Justina would fit in a storyline with, you know, say going back to like season 4 or 5 of The Walking Dead. And I think honestly, she would be a really awesome character to be there. And I'm trying to think of why. And I really feel like it's because of how she sees the world. Like, she is genuinely a really good person and she wants the best for everybody. And so characters like that in this world are really interesting because you want the best for them. And obviously we kind of know, since, you know, we've been watching this show for a very long time, that things don't always go that way. And I think for her to, you know, view the world like that, and then maybe just bad things happen and all that, and then does it, you know, break her spirit? Or, you know, because I think that's what made Glenn really interesting, was that he had that hope there. You know, he was a good person all the way until the end. And, you know, maybe in a sense it got him killed or just whatever. I mean, I don't really think so, but there's always sort of that belief out there, right? And that's why Rick ended up, you know, going crazy at some points. And, you know, so it is just kind of an interesting thing to think about, like, how would Justina work on The Walking Dead? And I think she would work really well. And I really want to see her back in like a future spinoff. I think she would be really incredible there. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see, obviously, what season 4 brings. Now, I love the music. It really reminded me of like Legend of Zelda and like just stuff like that. Like just that type of music playing there when Daryl and Justina are traveling back. It's funny because like I'm complaining about the pacing and everything. And yes, it's still a thing. The pacing is way too fast here. But at least they showed them traveling back. And so we saw that. And obviously they stopped for gas at one point. Then Daryl actually is thinking about Merle and stuff. So we got sort of a flashback scene there in some sense. Now, I will say when it comes to that, I am disappointed with that. I thought that there was going to be a bigger reveal with that storyline, like why Daryl was thinking about Merle. And it was really just to have that scene there. Like none of it really mattered overall. Like it was just Merle saying something to Daryl and he was just thinking about it the entire time. Like flashbacks just to have flashbacks. And so I don't really get the point of that. I really don't. I think that, I don't know who wrote that or whose decision it was to have that in the season. It was cool to see, but I really wish that it just mattered more to the story, and it didn't. And then we get to the very ending scene here, which is, you know, obviously Daryl shows up and takes out everyone. Justina shows up, and it's really just at this point, Daryl is just seen as a hero. That's what I wrote in my notes here, Daryl the hero, because he literally was the hero of really this whole story because he took out El Alcazar. Everyone's saved here for the most part, and Fede is just done now. Like, at this point, he is just a villain, and that's it. And so, I will say, like, again, I wrote in my notes here that the pacing is way too fast. It is something that I know I bring up a lot, and I don't really want to bring it up this much. It's just, it's so frustrating because all of this is happening, and so Daryl and Carol are like, well, we're gonna leave, right? And so we get that scene where we see Daryl talking to Carol, and, you know, just about whatever. And then it's nighttime and like all that's fine. But then Fede shows up and I'm like, okay, what? Like that right there, I thought was just, I mean, really unneeded. Like they left the story in a really interesting place where Fede was in a really interesting place. And they honestly could have just like left the story there and just waited until season 4. But they, for some reason, brought him there. And then he's the reason why the boat, you know, got set on fire and is gone now. There was a totally different way to explain all that. You could have had something else happen there with the boat that maybe set up a villain storyline in season 4. Just anything could have happened there, right? Or maybe nothing happens right away and the boat is just there and they're all about to leave, but like we'll have to wait and see where things go in season 4. Are they going to leave or are they, you know, and maybe it just leaves on a more hopeful ending kind of thing. But you have to have Fede show up and they don't even take him out. Like they just knock him out. So I wrote in my notes here, why not kill Fede? Like, it makes no sense. I know Justina's there, and, you know, that's her uncle, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. He's done some really horrible things. He's causing all of this. You're killing other characters, I would say, for a lot less, right? And so that part there was frustrating. I really didn't understand why we saw that at the end. But then we see Codron show up. And so that was kind of cool. So Codron is there. And also I feel like it was a Spanish version of the song Hurt. I believe that's from Nine Inch Nails, but Johnny Cash obviously covered it, which I love Johnny Cash's cover of it. Obviously this was an Andrew Lincoln Easter egg because he always listened to the song. Maybe he did it with The Ones Who Live as well. I'm not sure, when he stopped or if he still listens to that song in terms of getting, into the mindset of Rick Grimes, but that song is always just like what he listened to get into that mindset of Rick Grimes. And so it was kind of cool to see that. And yeah, the episode just ends there on a cliffhanger. The boat's gone. It seems like they're just never going to get back home. They're trapped, and that is it. So overall, I will say that I wasn't the biggest fan of this episode. I think that it was an okay episode. I kind of think that's sort of where I'm at with this. Like, it was cool to see Codron. The music that was used throughout the episode was awesome. Daryl obviously taking down all of El Alcazar was really awesome. There was moments here and there. Performances by some of the actors and stuff were just really incredible. But the pacing, the story, and just certain decisions, again, I guess mostly with the story, were really kind of underwhelming. And again, I can bring up the episode count again. I think that really does hurt this so much. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where season 4 is going to go, though, because all of this is kind of over, and now we're going to start off in a fresh place for season 4. So I will do a video talking about season 4. I'm expecting that we're going to get a trailer or a teaser for season 4 tonight. So stay tuned for that. I'll talk about the final season trailer or teaser or whatever we're going to get later on tonight, most likely anyways, because we got one last year and I think before that. So I'm assuming we will get something later on tonight. So I'll do a video on that, but, I will say with this story specifically, it was really awesome to see Daryl and Carol in Spain, and obviously they're still going to be there for the final season, but now it's going to be a lot more of, like, trying to get home, and this whole show is ending, right? So it's going to be very different. Like, this season here was really the season where they were exploring all of Spain and seeing all the characters and all of that, and I think what they did for the most part worked really well. And yeah, I think the villains were underwhelming. And that's pretty much it. I think the spinoffs are having a hard time really building up a story besides like the main character storyline that matters. And it's really interesting when you think about, the last however many, I guess, years here. Like, the villains of a lot of these shows have not been the best. Well, I will say, Madame Genet and the Walker variants and all that were a really incredible story in season 1. Season 2 just completely, I don't even know what happened there. But that was a really interesting storyline. The CRM, they were incredible. But besides that, there hasn't been a lot of villains that have been the most exciting. Like, you look at Dead City, like New Babylon, Dama and the Croat haven't been that interesting. And El Alcazar in this season really wasn't the most interesting. Like, a lot of what was fun in this season specifically was Daryl just trying to survive in Spain, and just a lot of that, literally. Like, I think all of that was fun. It was a really great season for sure. I just think the villains and the story and everything like that really, I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of that this season. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.